Greetings, whoever is watching this. I really hate doing these things because I'm technically challenged. I'm not very proficient at doing something like this, but I feel the need, probably as a lot of other people do, to speak out on the events that are happening around our country. It's a horrible thing to watch when you see the entire country being torn apart on every level, and they're being torn apart from every possible direction that there can be. Our history has never been filled with a situation like this, where we're being attacked from within, not just from without. On all the levels that they come at everybody with, all the divisiveness, all the things that they use to attack us, to rip us apart as a people, as a nation, is very disheartening for many of us. But we need to wake up. We need to wake up and see and understand what's being done to us. Taking away our freedoms, speech, Second Amendment, everything you can think of on every level. This is not only just something that's wrong, it's something that if we don't wake up enough to, if enough people don't wake up and see this, they will overrun us. We will no longer have a free country and society because they are taking it from us, piece by piece, little by little, slowly, and that's the plan, is to do it slowly. That's the idea. That's how they sneak up. And before you know it, it's gone. That's where we're at. Let's take just even the border situation, which is Obama 2.0 in that regard. It looks more like he's running the country than Biden, who is obviously just a figurehead, sitting there with dementia, can barely hold anything together, can barely read the cue cards they give him, the screens in front of him. They hate when he goes off script. This border situation is beyond compare. There is no other nation on earth, hardly, that allows border crossings, wide open borders, such as we have. We're in a situation where we have over 6 million, get that, 6 million people crossing our borders. A great number of them are gotaways. We have no clue as who they are, why they're here, where they're going, where they're at, or what they have in mind to do. If anyone thinks for one moment that we haven't had terrorists, evil people crossing the border, and that they're already here, embedded, then you're crazy. They're here. There's no doubt about it that they're somewhere in these groups. We've caught some of the suspected possible terrorists, people tied to terror organizations. What about the ones we haven't caught? There's no doubt that they're there. And there's no doubt that there will be an attack or multiple attacks done in this country and cost American lives at some point in time. It's going to be a point of when, not if. It is almost absolutely inevitable. Some of these people coming across on behalf of terrorist organizations, other countries that plan to launch attacks at some point. You don't think that they're going to make sleeper cells out there, and those sleeper cells are going to have targets, designated targets, pre-planned to hit at some point, when and if called upon. That's more likely than not going to happen if they don't act on their own, and I'm sure that there are some that will be acting on their own. We have 20 times as many people crossing our border with ill intentions than any other country probably in the world. There are other countries that come close. Look at what's going on with Italy, Germany, even in the UK. This is a disastrous situation. They talk about invasion of borders. Look at Ukraine and Russia. Not nearly as many Russians invaded Ukraine and started a war. Yet we sit here and openly invite that to happen to us. And at some point it will. The Democrat politicians on the left, and they are far left, almost every Democrat politician there is, they want this to be the case. They want this disruption. They want this change of the demographics of our country. They think that will help them maintain, hold their power, and gain more power over all of us who are Americans. This is a horrendous situation, and it can't be allowed to go on. Our own federal government is in violation of our federal immigration laws. I don't care how you slice it. I don't care what you put on it. Spin it out. They're in violation of federal laws. And I have to ask myself, as I'm sure that many of you do, how in the world can they just obviously violate what is supposed to be our federal law to protect our border? How can the Border Patrol be ordered to violate these federal laws? I really don't have an answer to that. How that can be possible. They are in violation, and the borders are absolutely wide open, and they're opening them even wider, just like all these passages they cut through the fence they said were for deer to go through, or elk, or whatever it was. It's absolute insanity. It is suicidal. But it is deliberate. Make no mistake about that. It is a deliberate act by our own government against the American people, against our country. This is an act of war. And for those of you that aren't clued in yet, we are at war. We just don't know it. Many of us. The left-wing media, mainstream media propaganda arm of the Democrats are doing so because that is what they are getting for marching orders. And too many people out there are too susceptible to believe what is happening. It's easy to talk about wanting, people to be able to come to America, but they need to come to America legally. They need to come to America not just running across the border and catch and release. This is all by design. And we are being set up to be massacred, slaughtered. How many people have already died from drug overdoses in 1 year? How many people have we lost? Thousands and thousands of people. Thousands already. Well, if thousands of people have died because of their policies, shouldn't they be held responsible? Yet, they're not being held responsible. They're not being held accountable for all the lives that are being lost. This is something that should not be acceptable by any American, by anyone. Yet it continues on day upon day upon day. It never ends, and it won't end until we stop it, until we demand that this end. We demand. They are supposed to be working for us, our elected officials, and we have so many people running the country who aren't elected officials. They are bureaucrats set in place to carry out their agenda. Their agenda is to destroy America as we know it, to take away our freedoms. They want to stop us talking about it. They want to stop us spreading information about many, many things. We are being attacked on so many fronts, it's difficult to mount a counteroffensive. It's difficult to do that because it is in so many directions. This must come to an end. The migrants coming across the border, which are still essentially illegals, they're coming across the border and free-flowing throughout the entire country. They're coming across the border, and even they, most of them, are suffering because of this policy. They are suffering. They are dying. Literally, they are dying. Women and children are being trafficked, raped. And this is a constant daily event. It's horrific. And although this is horrific, we're not hearing that much in the news about just how horrific it is. How absurdly insane that it is that people are being put through this. They're talking about 85,000 children unaccounted for. And I can assure you it's far greater in number than just 85,000. Much more. How do you tolerate the fact that people are being killed and that they are being raped and they are being trafficked? And they come over here with all the little wristbands from the cartels. The cartels are running the border. Not our border patrol, not our government, not this so-called president. The cartels are running the border, and they're making billions off of it. The drugs that have already been trafficked here, there's no way to calculate the numbers of the drugs that are coming here. And it's through China and through Mexico. China supplies them, Mexico makes it up, and it crosses our borders. And what we catch is probably not even 1/10 of how much is coming across. And all of the people here that are dying, being killed off by these drugs. What you put women and children through. Imagine these children who are being raped, trafficked. If you see Sound of Freedom, you have just a little bit of an idea of what's going on with this border. And yet our so-called government and our officials allow this to continue. There are things they can do to stop it. Congress and the different states on the borders, there's things that they can do that they're not doing. And not even trying hardly enough. You're going to tell me that Texas, Arizona couldn't send their own state National Guardsmen down there and bring it to a halt. Demand that federal law be enforced, as well as state laws. I say they can. And there may be some that say, no, that's not legally possible. Well, how do we know? No one's tried it. And God knows it is a, desperate situation, and that calls for desperate measures. More of us, Americans, have to stand up. We have to tell our officials, demand of our officials that they must act, and they must act now. We're way past time. People sit back and they're busy with their lives. I understand that. They're busy. You've got too many people who are stuck in CNN, MSNBC, and all they hear is the propaganda and the lies that are spit out. And they're utterly convinced that these things are true when they are not true, in fact. And we can't hold the media accountable because there's not enough of us trying to hold them accountable, forcing their feet to the fire. If we don't stand, if we don't take a stand, if we don't speak up and speak out at every level of every problem, it will continue and it will escalate. It will become much worse. It will become our biggest nightmare. I feel it. I see it. It's in my gut that we are headed for God knows what disaster. Civil war possible, world war possible. And the left Democrat politicians are so desperate. If they feel that they are going to lose their hold, their power, their money, they will do almost anything. Unimaginable things that we can't even maybe think of at this point to stop it from happening. We as a people must stand. We must call it out at every level that they use against us. That's a lot of directions and it's very difficult. We must stand. If you don't call it out, it doesn't end. It does progress. It does become worse. We have to do this. And all of us have to stand up for what is right. No matter what level it is, no matter what it's about, whether it's CRT in schools, gender ideology in schools, how schools are indoctrinating and creating unpatriotic Americans. We used to fight for this country. We're going to have to stand up and fight again, and we need to do it now. If not, how do we ever stop? How do we find our way back once we've gone too far? If we wait too long, that is going to be what we're faced with, if we're not already there. And that may be the possibility. We need to realize that they have no qualms about crushing us. They're making that really obvious. If they continue down this path, then we're going to end up in a situation like the Jews and Nazis in Germany. We're going to end up with these camps or something similar to that. That is the outcome if we don't stand. Or we can let them lead us right into this, which is okay by them. Be Americans, be patriots. See the evil that is around you and stand up to it and demand from these so-called politicians, no matter what side they're on, let them know we see it. Call it out. If we get the chance to vote them out, then we need to stand and vote and make sure that the votes are legitimate and legal, honest, free, fair elections with full transparency. I hope you agree and spread the word. Because if not, we all lose, both sides. This is how it is.